Boker Tov, everyone. Boker Tov Kulam. It is Monday, April 6th, just a few short days before the Passover holiday begins and Pesach Seder. And in preparation for the Seder and for Passover, according to the Torah, we need to get rid of all the chametz. Chametz is the Hebrew word in the Torah for the leaven. And the process, actually it's a few-step process, in addition to getting rid of all the leaven out of our house, typically in bread and in foods that rise, we have to look for the leaven, look for the chametz, and we have to burn it, actually, the tradition of actually removing it through burning. It's actually interesting this year. Some authorities say you don't have to go burn it if you're not able to leave your house to actually go do so. It's a symbolic burning, by the way, because also you can take your chametz in your house, all those items, food items that might have leaven in it that you cannot eat during Passover, and you can hide them away in your house and cover them. They should not be seen. And then you actually sell these things symbolically to someone like a rabbi, who I will then sell them to someone who does not celebrate Passover. But the idea really is ultimately is to remove the chametz, remove the leaven from your houses. That's what the Torah tells us. But spiritually, metaphorically, it's about removing the leaven from our souls and from our hearts. So, I'm not the first to say this, but chametz is, because it's a leavening agent, which makes things puff up, actually makes a lot of pastries and food taste delicious and soft and soothing, especially those carbs. It also, it's about lifting, it's about puffing out. That's what chametz says, it puffs things out. And so the metaphor that, many rabbis have used in the past is that it is a symbol of the puffed out ego. And it's a lack of humility, that a leavening agent is about perhaps arrogance, and removing the leaven is about the spiritual practice of humbling oneself. So I want to talk about humility a little bit today, because when we remove the chametz, and I invite you to do so, it's a powerful practice as best as possible. It's a unique year, okay? Let's do it as best as we can, and it's reasonable. But it's about burning out and bior chametz of inside too. And, something I've learned from Rabbi Jenny, and this is based on the Musar teaching, a Jewish tradition of moral teaching, of kind of practice of working on refining the midot and qualities of a human being. Being humble, Moshe, here's the caption, Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher, he has said in the Torah that there was no one more humble than Moshe. He was the most humble. And you might say, well, how is he defined his best qualities? Humility. Now, you could see some qualities. First of all, he thinks when God calls him, he feels like, who am I? I can't do this. Okay, that sounds humble. And he goes up to Pharaoh, and he doesn't say to Pharaoh at first, let my people go, and God's gonna destroy you. Although he does say that he gives Pharaoh 10 chances, you might say, through the plagues. And Moshe, he has a speech impediment, which is powerful in itself. So maybe he's humble in the fact that he has Aaron helping him. He realizes he can't do it himself alone. In fact, Aaron really is the mouthpiece in a lot of ways. Moshe does certain roles, doesn't do all. So you see aspects of humility with Moshe that you might typically see. At the same time, though, he still does step up, and he still speaks truth to power, and he still leads the people. He doesn't say, I'm so humble, I refuse, I can't ever do it. I mean, he finds a way to do it. So this is an interesting question, because we might say, well, humility is about someone who's so humble and so soft-spoken and so self-deprecating that they hide into the crowd and never speak up and, always hide behind and never, take any, compliments. I mean, Moshe, he does, okay? He understands he's a leader. And the Torah is called Torat Moshe. It's Moses' Torah, another name for it. Which, since theoretically he wrote it, he put into it. So he shows a mixed bag of what you might say is typical humility, unless we redefine what humility is. And this is something I learned from Rabbi Jenny. So humility is not about being so self-deprecating and self-annihilating, the bitul of your ego, that you think you're nothing. The old joke. But the rabbi and cantor are praying before the Ark on Yom Kippur, and the rabbi says, I'm so nothing, I'm nothing. And they can't just, because of Ark, says, I'm nothing, God, I'm absolutely nothing. And then the shamus, the sexton, the one who helps set up the shul, says, I'm really nothing. The rabbi turns to the cantor and says, look who thinks he's nothing. Okay? It's like, it can be a competition. Who's more nothing, It's not about being nothing. It's about being right-sized. It's about recognizing that each person, please God, has some kind of gifts, has something to offer, has something to give and contribute into the world. But it's about knowing what is your gift, what is your contribution, and what is your space? What is the space that you should fill up? Because you are a creature in God's image, and you've been given an opportunity. You've been given a shama, a soul. You've been given a talent. And this is your gift to give, but no more. And when to know that this is your space to give something, and then to step back and let other people give their gifts and create space for other people to give their gifts. It's about being right-sized. Now, I want to give a couple examples about this right-sizing, because being humbled, being in a place where you think you're right-sized, and this is an ongoing spiritual practice. What is my size? What is my gift? What can I offer? And when am I going too far? And when do I have to experience being humbled? So, a couple examples. One, I want to say I interact here a lot in my congregation here in North Carolina. I think it's a very, 94% of my congregation, my shul, is transplants from other places, primarily the Northeast and Florida. Those are the two biggest places we come from, but really all over the country. To some degree all over the world, but really over the country. What I find is there's a trait amongst certain people who come from other places in the country, especially Northeast. It's not all, of course, but it's a certain trait. There's a certain trait when it comes to what I call fiscal conservative beliefs. And I totally get it. I'm making an argument here for what I see, but there's other reasons why people have a fiscal conservative belief. I'm going to give one example. People come to me and say, Rabbi, I don't like paying high taxes. I don't believe the government is an efficient use of our money. I believe in general in small government as a general statement. I believe the government mismanages our money. There's plenty of examples of this. They have an excellent point. I think that I should take my money, hold on to as much as possible, and invest it in businesses or charity tzedakah of my choice. That's how the least amount of government influence in my life and my business in society is best for a high-functioning society. This comes not only from people living in Northeast where there's high taxes by and large, and state government tends to be stronger than local government. But even, you might say, and this is an argument from Jewish history, some members of the Jewish community, especially those who have lived in countries, sadly, where there's been large government, where the government nationalized things, took over, or the government acted immorally, let's say the Nazis, right? There's a fear of big government, that big government is going to dominate and do immoral behavior. So it's rooted in some very important values I think all of us need to listen to. It's not just a critique of I don't want to pay more money for taxes. It's a critique of what is the role of government in our lives and what that means for our freedom. I think this is a very profound point. And I've had to listen to it more as a rabbi in North Carolina than I ever had prior. I've heard it. I've really heard it. And when we're in this crisis and the government passes a $2 trillion, let's say, assistance package, someone call it a bailout, and is preparing additional ones, my fiscal conservatives seem a little quiet right now. Okay, I'm making a little bit of a joke. I know my fiscal conservatives could say, well, this is the role of government in an emergency to save the economy. I don't disagree. Okay, fine, I got it. Not everyone's an extremist. But I think that this is a moment for some fiscal conservatives that they're being humbled. They're being humbled. They've said the government should be small. Now they're saying, well, so worried about government debt. Can't hear you. Okay. Now, I say that to say this moment is about being humbled. It's about getting right-sized. It's about getting back in the box that's appropriate. And I want to say, I don't have an issue with someone saying, you know what, maybe I was a little bit extreme in my views, and I'm back in. That's about being humble. That's about getting back in your size. I think that is, to accept that and just admit that, kol hakavod. That's Moshe. Getting right-sized. Think about right now in terms of our health, right? I mean, so many people, I live as a rabbi. Health is not relevant. They care. Many people, of course, care. Generally speaking, they're aware of the health choices. But, many people ignore or don't take seriously what their doctor tells them. I remember when my current doctor I've had for about 10 years, I adore him. And one time he told me the story. I was meeting with him and I was complaining to him about some small health issue. I don't remember what it was. And he was giving me advice and I totally implemented it. Whatever it was. That's my style. I listened to the doctor. And he said to me, he was so grateful. And I said, why are you so grateful? You told me what to do. I'm trying to do what you said. He said, Rabbi, 95% of my patients don't do what I say. The vast majority, I recommend they don't do it. Very humbling. So when someone does it, maybe realize, a lot of a doctor's job, especially those that get in the primary care, it's a humbling position to be in when you try to have influence and you're constantly essentially told no. But in this moment, people are realizing of all the things in life, health really is the most important. It is the starting block for all of the things that I want to do. Sadly, sometimes it's a crisis to realize. It's humbling. When people say, like some of our politicians, oh, we're going to have a vaccine in a few months, or even 12 to 18 months, which seems to me like an eternity, frankly. But think about that. It's unbelievable that we could expect such a thing. It's humbling that we're going to have to deal with this for many seasons, months, years, who knows. It's not that I asked for it, but it's an opportunity for right sizing. Wow, we aren't in control of our world. There are things beyond us. We are going to have to sit with this, not just for a few minutes or a few days or a few weeks. Instead of fighting that humbling, what if we just accepted it and said, wow, this is a chance to get right-sized. Here's my last story. My father was a lay cantor. He'd lead services with his voice in the synagogue I grew up in. He didn't go to formal cantorial school, but he learned these things as a lay person. He was well-respected and loved my father for it. It was a deep influence on me becoming a rabbi, as my father and mother's influence and involvement in synagogue life. I'm going to come back for Rosh Hashanah Union Year, the big holiday of the new year. I was in the University of Maryland. I came back. And it just typical traditions, services, lunch. We're at lunch. And during the service itself, during the prayer service, there's a particular moment, a silent meditation that my father used to pray typically. But this particular year, I saw he had tremendous kavanah. I just could feel it, his intention, his devotion. And at the Rosh Hashanah lunch, after the service was over, I asked him about it. I was probably 19 or 20. Dad, I saw you were praying with additional heartfeltness. What was going on there, Dad? And my father said, Era, I've been struggling. I've had certain health issues this past year. And some of them are out of my control. Some of them are congenital, but some are dealing with my diet. And I'm really struggling with it. I have to change certain things. And if I want to avoid other medicines or other complications, and I'm finding it difficult. It's so hard for me that I really feel like I've reached the end of my natural ability, and I ask for God's help to help me to change in these dietary ways. My jaw dropped. Like in my head. Now I was careful. I said a little questions to my dad, but I thought what? And my dad was a sign of strength. He was a leader. He'd shown discipline. My dad, I thought, could conquer, typical simplistic child thing, first child. Anything. You need God? That's a crutch. What? Get over yourself, Dad. That is what I thought. That's really what I thought. I asked my dad a few questions, and he just kind of answered honestly, which I really appreciated. Didn't judge me for my slightly critical questions. But it sent me on a whole spiritual journey. Huge influence. What does it mean that someone I respect can't, on his own, do everything? I mean, what? It was a moment where my dad was willing to be right-sized. He was being humbled and accepting it and realizing there's power beyond him. There's got to be it's beyond him. He can't do it alone. It's humbling. The question is, are you going to accept it? That's the question. This moment is about a humbling. We are being humbled by this pandemic. I'm not saying don't wear masks. I'm not saying don't fight it. I want a vaccine too. But if we take this opportunity to say, maybe we need to take our health more seriously, just even washing our hands more seriously. I mean, I typically wash my hands. Believe me, Gabal, I'm washing my hands more than crazy. I think probably many of us are. It's humbling. So what is chametz? Chametz is ego outside of what it should be, and anava. Why was Moshe the most humble? Because he knew his size. He got back, he accepted the humbling, and he served. He didn't get so humbled that he was a pancake, a matzah, flat, but he was humbled enough to realize, I have something to give, but so does Aaron, and so does Miriam, and so do the people, and so does God. I have my part. This is my part. There's some people, I'll leave on this, have struggled, they've told me, with who's essential workers and who's not essential. Look how powerful that's been. That's been humbling. Grocery workers, medical professionals, obviously, first responders, people working for Amazon, Instacart, they're essential. Get over yourself, Solomon. What's essential? What's not essential? Humbling. Important. That's the chametz we need to remove this Pesach, maybe more than any other Passover. So I invite you to focus, maybe make a list. What are the leaven? What's the chametz? How can I get right-sized? Boker Tov, a sweet, healthy day, a humble day. May we all remove the chametz from our neshamas. Shalom.